Okay. Did I'm not going to be watching the chat, but did I miss anything in the chat? I will, since we are recording, I want to welcome all of you to our quarterly update for Grassroots Wildland Firefighters. And this will be on our YouTube channel for later viewing. And please subscribe to our channel to see our updates as we have new postings. That's a good place to find where we have new updates. Okay, I'm going to go over what my piece, a lot of what I'm doing right now is working on the pay classification and parity in some of the which I know a lot of you are going to have questions on regarding classification and pay. You know, the thing that I think we're all like very excited about is that this is actually gaining some real positive traction with the U.S. Forest Service and the Office of Wildland Fire, which includes the Bureau of Land Management, National Park Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and Bureau of Indian Affairs. So it brings in the 5 agencies, and Grassroots has been working very closely with our DC staff once the infrastructure bill was passed to help provide kind of a feedback as well as education and information from our group here, from all of you, is extremely important. So classification, I just had a meeting with our DC folks yesterday. They are diligently moving along with classification, and I will say that classification and compensation with OPM, they're pretty much taking 2 different tracks, and so that's the thing I think all of us need to know. The classification, the piece there that I'm really excited about, and I really wasn't sure, I don't think anybody was really sure how this was going to go with Office of Personnel Management, but when I was talking to the DC staff yesterday, it sounds very promising that a series will be developed from a GS2 to a GS15, and that's almost unheard of, that we are now looking at a true wildland firefighter classification from hire to retire. And so this is something that I know a lot of you have really been pushing for over the years. And the timeline for OPM to roll this out, again, things could change, but it's likely to be the very beginning of the summer fire season, which could be May or June. So that's a pretty exciting development. When we were chatting, OPM is reviewing, I don't know if they're going to review all these, but they're looking at least 4,000 different PDs from the Forest Service and many, many more from the from Interior as well. So a lot of behind the scenes and upfront work that's being done there. I did ask about what is the unintended consequences, you know, of this series. Is there anything that anybody can see? And if you have questions regarding, hey, there might be an unintended consequence here with classification, by all means, put that in the chat. That's something we definitely want to discuss. You've also heard about where are the areas that are hard to recruit and retain. And I think the common reply is going to be that all areas are hard to recruit and retain wildland firefighters. So there was a talk and a discussion at one point that only certain areas within the US would be deemed hard to recruit and retain. And so for the most part, what we're hearing is that this is pretty ubiquitous nationwide. This doesn't pertain to any particular state or geographic area. It really is nationwide. I'm going to get through a couple of more comments here, and then I'd like to take a pause and just talk about classification before we go into pay. Let's see. You probably heard that there was an old series called 0456, and for some of the old fire dogs, they might remember that from the late 60s and early 70s. OPM is basically starting over. They did take a look at that, that it's too antiquated. It won't work for creating this hire to retire classification. They don't know what the series is going to be or what the job family will be as of yet. But that's where it is headed. Let's see. I asked about the 0462, and I do believe that certainly there's still the opportunity for those of you that are in your current series to remain in your current series. But there is talk that once you retire, you get a different job, that the advertisement will probably pick up the new job series. And again, I can't, I'm really struggling to actually try to find what the unintended consequences are, of not everybody. I'm sure there's going to be people for whatever reason that don't really want to tag on to a new classification. But again, this is something that this has been coming from the field for years. And for OPM to pick this up, which they've never done in the past, is pretty impressive. So I'm really glad that we're seeing that. And the agencies really are putting a lot of muscle behind this. One of the problems, of course, they mentioned too, is the staffing for OPM, Office of Personnel Management. They're just having a really hard time getting the staff that they need to do the work that we need them to do. Let's see. I would like to believe that classification would roll out with compensation, but because of the pay, and I should stay on track, I need to get to pay later. But it's something we keep asking about, because all of you keep asking about that as well. Let's see. There are questions regarding overtime, retirement benefits, insurance. But again, everybody is on point to know that these are things that need to be addressed. The new classification, like I said, initially we're looking at GS3 to GS15. We have had discussions that starting with primary, because those are the folks that are in the field every summer, is very, very important to ensure that we at least start with the primary and secondary fire positions that are field going, and especially those GS11s that are district FMOs that have large staffs as well, working on incident management teams. We have talked about dispatch, aviation, dozer operators are being looked at as well. We just don't know how these PDs will progress. The low-hanging fruit is the engines, wildland fire modules, hotshot crews, helitack, fuels, prescribed fire, smoke jumpers, the traditional firefighter PDs. It's these other ones that are causing some, I shouldn't say concern, but they're not as straightforward. And I guess there's even some dispatchers that are not in covered positions. We did talk a little bit about the 301, 401 series, and it was a good discussion. DOI, as far as I know, still has the positive education requirement for the 401. We're not sure how this is going to roll out yet with the new classification. I've asked if agencies are still requiring positive education, that they please consider other degrees that will support the fire program, like public land management, business management, safety and risk management, just to name a few. So we believe that the 401 series that has pigeonholed us into natural resources is not necessarily broad enough to really address the reforms and the needs that we have for the next 50 years for wildland fire. So that is being given some consideration. So I'm hopeful that when you also talk to your AFMOs, FMOs, if you're regional fire directors, if you're in the national office and you're on the call tonight, that we give strong consideration to accepting other degree requirements, if in fact we are going to require degrees for our upper level positions. And then just a little known fact that sometimes we have district rangers, and I'm kind of talking Forest Service here, and forest supervisors that don't necessarily have to meet a positive education requirement, yet we're making our fire staff have to meet a fire or a positive education requirement. So we feel like, excuse me, that we need to be equitable across the board. And if we are going to require education, that it's particular and broad enough to really add value to the organization. Also, I asked about IFPM standards and how that will be applied between the two departments, Department of Ag and Interior. They're not really going to touch that one yet, and they're holding off on this until the classification comes out before NWCG will address anything like that. So, okay, I need to take a break. I do have a tendency to talk a lot. So I'd like, you know, if anybody, Smoke Jumper Bro, I think I've got somebody from our comms team. If you've seen anything in the chat that we need to discuss about classification that jumps out at you. No? Okay, hey, hi, Brandon.
Hello, everybody. Apologies for the delay. Traffic sucks. And then I came home to a house full of, well, not good things. So anyways, I'm back. Sorry about that, everybody, but we are here. So okay. What did I miss? Did I miss anything? Or do you got
this?
We
are recording, and sorry, I missed the first part of that, and Smoke Jumper Bro reminded me to start the recording. So I missed a few pieces, not too bad, but I started in on the classification. I haven't addressed the compensation yet, and that's the next piece that I want to go into, and then I'll turn it back to you if that's okay.
Yeah, take it away. Do your thing.
Okay, so classification. The fact that the infrastructure bill, most of you are probably aware of this. This is kind of our bread and butter, is talking about the 50% pay increase or $20,000. Whichever is less. So it is in the bill, available. It's, I think, a total of 600 million. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. 480 million for Forest Service and 120 for Department of Interior. The agencies will flat out tell you they don't have the authority to. There is no pay authority for agencies like the Forest Service, Park Service, BLM to actually pay that directly to the employee. So the process that they're working through right now, and this is that parallel track that that our agencies are on with Office of Personnel Management, trying to figure out how to make this work. And I have a strong, high assurance from DC that money will reach people's pocket by this summer. Now, I can't tell you what that is. We're trying to stay on point, you know, as much as we can. I initially did some initial calculations to say, well, can we at least look at increasing base hourly wages by 50%? And I think it went up from a GS3 to roughly about a GS8 before it started to exceed $20,000. So it's just a starting point. And how would that play out in overtime? I would say that, you know, obviously if your base salary was increased, then your overtime would also be increased. I can't assure you of anything like that. We are definitely on the outside as Grassroots Wildland Firefighters, but we can be a voice for you in DC. But to say that classification and compensation are coming out at the same time, I wish I could assure you that that is the case. I just want to be realistic with what I heard in terms of how this is going to roll out with pay. We talked about there are some authorities within the Office of Personnel Management regarding supplemental pay, but we were also reminded that if it kicks in, it might have a negative impact on people working in high locality pay areas, as supplemental may be less than the locality pay. So we really want to be careful on how this rolls out and not impact people negatively with pay. So it's important that we follow that pretty closely, that we don't have any unintended consequences with pay. We were also reminded that what is in the law, what's in the infrastructure law. It does not state that we have to create a unique pay authority. Now, I have to do a lot more research on what a unique pay authority is. Law enforcement officers have been able to advocate and lobby Congress for a unique pay authority. We have to do some homework on that. So it's important that these are not permanent increases. So that's a little edgy for me as well. How can we really provide these pay increases and then take them away in 4 or 5 years? So we've got some work to do to really finalize the reforms. And I'm not going to be talking about Tim's Act. Somebody else in our group will be talking about Tim's Act, and where I think that can plug the hole, has the potential to plug the hole in terms of sustainable reforms in terms of pay. Okay, so that's what I have for classification and compensation. Brandon or comms team, do you guys want to help me with any questions? Or if anybody wants to ask a question, you can certainly raise your hand and we'll take your question.
Hey, Kelly, I'll roll through the fear of the chat and see if there's anything pertinent that comes up.
Okay. And then I'm done, Brandon. I will turn it back to you.
Copy that. Let me read through this chat here. And I guess one of the questions that's going to be a common question over here is going to be, is the pay going to be backdated? Do we have any updates on that? Or did we already cover that?
No, I should have mentioned that. That's unknown as well. I don't know. It just feels like a kind of a squishy question and evasive question when we talk to DC about that. So we don't, because they don't even really know what the rollout of the compensation is going to be. They're just really struggling. So what we keep hearing is that the agencies and OPM would not have written language like this in a bill that became law, because there's nothing that they can tie it to in terms of existing policy in terms of pay authorities. So I don't know. I'm hopeful certainly that money will reach all of you this year, but I cannot say, and there's no degree of confidence in what that quote unquote, back pay might look like.
Copy that. And that looks like about all the questions that we have regarding pay and classification. So I'll be taking over from here. Kelly, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Next up is going to be Smoke Jumper Bro, a legislative update, if you are so ready. Smoke Jumper Bro, take it away.
Yeah, hey, so I'll be talking about Tim's Act, where it stands. Everybody kind of remembers we unveiling in the House of Representatives back in October. Representative Joe Neguse introduced Tim's Act and had a quick hearing about it that Kelly and Luke testified at, and that stuff's all on our website if you want to learn more about that. So what we're waiting for now is basically a Senate companion bill All these bills have to go through the House, pass, and then go through the Senate and pass, and then get signed by the president. So on the Senate side, you need to have a bill. And that's where our focus is at currently. Right now, there are a ton of committees in the Senate, but the one that would pertain to our bill, Tim's Act, is the Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee. And the Government Affairs Committee is essentially, it's HR law. And the issue we're running into is that we're being told that government employment HR law is as complex, if not more, than banking regulation. So it's just incredibly complex stuff that they have to unravel. And so what they're doing now is trying to come up with really solid language that works with everything that's currently on books as laws. And we're trying to figure out a way to get that bill so when it gets introduced in the Senate, it's bulletproof, basically. Because sometimes when you have a law that isn't written perfectly, then people can kind of grab onto little things and say it doesn't meet their standards or whatever, kind of like what's going on with the infrastructure law a little bit, where people are arguing about language here and there. So Michelle and Johnny are both just going full speed ahead on that, and they're having consistent meetings with that relevant committee. In the House, we just had Representative Abigail Spanberger co-sponsor Tim's Act, which is huge. She is on the House Agricultural Committee, and she's the chair of the Conservation and Forestry Subcommittee. So it's a big committee, and she's also in Virginia. So that's, on the East Coast, and getting a co-sponsor like that is really great. Which brings me to another point, especially if these representatives are in your state, if they're going to co-sponsor Tim's Act, it'd be great if you guys could write, an op-ed or a thank you letter, or just let them know that you appreciate their efforts, because the more co-sponsors we get, the more buy-in we have throughout the House and the Senate, the easier things will go. My understanding right now is Tim's Act is a really huge bill with, it's kind of got all stuff that we want, and it's kind of the standard or something that everybody's going to be looking at when they want to come up with a wildfire bill for firefighters. They're going to look to Tim's Act and say like, oh yeah, that's what we need to get to. So it's so big that the current strategy may be that we're hearing is maybe to break it up and send it out to different staffs to work on different portions of the bill, and then come back and introduce it, and then maybe bring it all back together. So there's just a lot of things in play right now, but I feel confident something's going to be introduced. Tim's Act will be introduced hopefully this spring. I'm trying to look at some other notes here, but that's pretty much the update on Tim's Act that I have.
Copy that. Thank you, Smoke Jumper Bro. So after the updates on Tim's Act here, we're going to take it away to the mental health subcommittee. If you are present, hopefully you are.
I am present. You got me?
There we are. We got you.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. So the head of our subcommittee is unavailable tonight, so I'm going to try and do my best to stand in for him and provide you all with our update. So first, for anyone who might be a first-time joiner, our subcommittee has a couple of general goals. And so first, the aim is to work in collaboration with legislators, federal land management agencies, researchers, mental health professionals, all of that in order to advocate for change and reform. And then also, we try to put focus on short-term and long-term solutions in relation to the mental and physical well-being of wildland firefighters and their families. So currently, our subcommittee has 3 main focal points. And the first one being the development of a comprehensive and easily accessible mental health program. The second, to rectify the long-term health impacts from smoke exposure and environmental hazards. And then third is advocating for a reform of the OWCP claims processing procedures as they specifically relate to wildland firefighters. So the first focal point, talking about the mental health program for firefighters and their families, that's kind of got 5 elements. And so the first thing would be us working to get the word out by generating essentially kind of like mental health awareness campaigns. And then the second being working to instate a mental health education program, which would definitely include early career firefighters, like a curriculum for early career firefighters. So if you imagine maybe something similar to an S course, but it focused on information, tools, and resources to help firefighters balance mental health along with the realities of the job. So that's something that is a hope for the future. And then number 3 is to establish an extensive peer-to-peer mental health support network for wildland firefighters and their immediate family. And this is a separate thing from CISM peer supporters. And there's a model we used that we're looking at that's used by the military and has been successful there. But essentially, you could envision wildland firefighters going through a training to help them recognize when someone's not okay and provide the tools to help that person who's struggling up to a certain point anyhow. The fourth element that we're looking at is to professionalize and expand the CISM program, and then develop an extension of that program to follow up with employees that were affected by trauma, further down the road. And then the 5th is to create mental health support services that are specific to wildland firefighters, first responders, and their immediate family with the culturally relevant trauma-informed clinicians that we need and that are also accessible, hopefully 24/7. And we kind of kicked around different ideas, but the concept might be to generate a nationwide database of contracted clinicians who are available physically for appointments and also virtually. And a date with that section anyhow, that first focal point is with the passage of the infrastructure bill. It sounds like the land management agencies are intending to continue streamlining the short-term programs like EAP, but they're also continuing to follow the progress of some pilot programs that they've got underway nationally. And the pilot programs could potentially help provide long-term solutions, but I don't have any more information than that as far as regarding the pilot programs. But the infrastructure bill, the funding is super helpful, but that is eventually going to run out. And so that's a huge part why the TIMS Act is crucial, because it would provide the opportunity to create more long-term for firefighters and their families. So point got, and I don't know, Brandon, do you think I should stop here and then we got any questions that I need to look at this point in the chat there?
Really anything pertaining to the mental health portion of the bill. So if you want to, I'll leave it up to you. If you want to continue to go with the mental health portion into your next subject there, by all means.
Okay. All right. So the second focal point we've got, that's in relation to the long-term health impacts from smoke and environmental hazards. So first component with that is trying to grant presumptive illness health coverage to permanent and temporary federal wildland firefighters for acute and chronic illness due to job-related exposures. So the presumptive illness coverage, that's covered most structure firefighters for years. And so our goal is to be provided that same type of coverage. And with that, we would try to establish time and service exposure time frame to for folks to receive that type of coverage. And then also involved in that is creating national federal wildland firefighter cancer and cardiovascular disease database. So trying to collect those names, and then let's see what else we got here. To develop and adhere to recommendations and mitigation strategies to minimize exposure to those environmental hazards in the first place. So, for example, limiting our smoke exposure, creating different mop-up protocols, providing education around dermal transfer from dirty Nomex, all that sort of stuff. Anything that has been identified to negatively impact firefighters' health, making sure that we get some really strong education around that sort of thing. So an update with that is we've been working with top smoke researchers, fire departments, land management agencies, all those groups to ensure that education is provided to firefighters surrounding the current risk of smoke and environmental hazards by developing a really solid comprehensive training, and to get that sooner in their career than later, because there are, I mean, if some of you folks have been through smoke classes that are be several years long in your career before you get that sort of information. I want to make sure we get that to folks sooner. Let's see what else. So TIMS Act currently includes language about presumptive illness for multiple types of cancers and cardiovascular diseases related to wildland firefighting. And that language would align with what a good portion of the structured fire departments already have established. So I can move on to the third one, unless there's anything you got there, Brennan.
No, I think we should switch it up a little bit and hold the questions to the more off-air, not recorded portion at the end. So that way we can actually speak our minds. So take it away for the next point, and let's hold all questions for the end.
All right. So third one, everybody's favorite, OWCP. There's a potentially huge development on the horizon, which would be fantastic if this goes through. So there's talk of a creation through the Department of Labor for a special claims unit specifically to address wildland firefighters' claims. And so, especially with the OWCP stories that have been shared in recent months through different articles, that's definitely made an impact with legislators, and the push for the special claims unit, similar to what law enforcement officers already have, has been pretty widely supported. So I think everybody would be stoked if that were the case. And I don't have, unfortunately, much more intel than that, but it is being heavily talked about. So everybody cross your fingers. Other than that, one final thing in other news, a few months back, this subcommittee had put out a survey for spouses and partners of wildland firefighters to give their insights into what they see as the most critical needs. And within that survey was also a space to leave comments. And many of the comments had asked for a place for spouses and partners to be able to connect with each other as sort of a one-stop shop for resources and information as well. And so this subcommittee is putting together spouses and partners page on the Grassroots website to be able to meet the need that we had heard so much about in the survey. And so over the next couple months, that'll be getting built out as well. So keep an eye out for that. And that is all I got.
Copy that. Thank you for the updates and the social media. What am I saying? Yeah, mental health subcommittee. Next up, we've got back to Smoke Jumper Bro with a website update.
Okay, do you guys see the website?
Yeah, it's up on the screen share.
Okay, cool. So here's our website. the website basically is something that we've all wanted, when we started our jobs in fire, and it was never available, right? So it's got all this information, and we want anybody just to come to visit the website and learn a ton of stuff about job, career, the outlook, and all that stuff. So when you get on here, there's the main menu has all this stuff on top. Tim's Act has its spot. Legislation has drop-down menus, infrastructure. Just like for an example, you go to the infrastructure bill, and it's pretty comprehensive. You can get the full bill text. You can go to the website really quick and pop over, and here's the infrastructure bill, and you can read all that. And then it has, kind of the important stuff, like how does it affect federal wildland firefighters? And you can just get right into it, and you can see what the DOI and the Forest Service has put out, for implementing infrastructure law. And here's OPM's, timeline. You can click through it and see their kind of rough timeline, I would say. And then we have an FAQ, how will this happen? And a lot of the questions that people are asking can be found in here, from what we know. But going back to the main page, it kind of gives you, how do you get involved? Like right here, get involved, and you work your way down, and a lot of the stuff, it's like, here's Tim's Act, infrastructure, how to contact your legislators. It's kind of a one-stop shop on the homepage, features the media, kind of the relevant stuff. We're always changing this stuff, but right now it's kind of a slow time of year because there's no fires going on. One really cool thing is we have these briefing papers, and this is kind of what I was saying, like the information. You come to these issues and you can just learn so much, like how much do they make at CAL FIRE? I don't know. Well, you click here and they make a lot more. Colorado, you want to talk about, like, why are we misclassified? If you don't really understand that, you can read our paper on misclassification. All kinds of stuff, hazard pay reform, temp buyback, smoke exposure. You're wondering why you're just breathing smoke all day. Well, it's an issue. And then it kind of gets down to talking about what Grassroots, Wildland Firefighters, what we're all about. And these are 4 pillars that you can kind of like read about. We designed it so when you're on the buggy going to a fire, you can just like pop in and learn something, So there's that. And then I'll get going on Tim's Act here. Here you can see the co-sponsors, and then get some statements of support and just kind of get your knowledge up about Tim's Act. A lot of good stuff in here, buying back temp time, overtime being included for your retirement calculation. And there's just cool stuff in here. And then a lot of media that you can share if you'd like, about Tim's Act. If you want to see our monthly updates, they'll be here in the monthly updates area. We haven't done one since December. We just did quarterly updates just because it's a lot of work to put these things on. And then we actually have some comms team that's going to start talking about the get involved stuff. But these are our campaigns to, we're trying to push people towards to get involved, like contacting the legislators and stuff. But I'll stay away from that for now. And then if you hit the contact button, this signs you up for our newsletter. I send out many. It's like once every 3 weeks, just when things come up that are important. And you can fill out, if you want to get in contact with us, not even sign up, just want to send a message. A lot of messages that are pretty, a lot of people have a lot of things that are really powerful. So I appreciate that. If there's ever any press, this is where we kind of like funnel the press to get involved. They can come down here and we have a separate press website, or press email for them to do media with. And honestly, I haven't been keeping up with this because there's so much press going on. But this is all the people we work with and stories we've gotten out, and there's a ton more stories coming up soon. I know that, and here's our email address there. And if you guys ever want downloadable logos or anything, they're all here. They're just full resolution, all of our logos. And then here is, if you click the About Us and you go to the team, these are all the people on our team. And there's we have a big comms team now. and recognize organizations. This just goes to organizations that we just are supporting each other, that we have the same common message and goals, some wildland firefighters. So these are really cool. Kyle here is super awesome. He let us use incredible photographer and let us use a lot of his photos for the website. This is a picture here. And then one thing I like to do is check out the store. Stickers, these are super cool if you want to put a sticker on something, hopefully not like your local bar, but maybe like another buggy or something. T-shirts. I love the tank top. I think everybody loves a tank top. The hats are great. Mugs are cool. And I just put these patches on, and I got one of these. They're actually really nice. They're high quality. And we don't make really any money on the merchandise here, like maybe a couple bucks, but really we're just trying to get our name out there and get people involved, because a lot of people don't even know, wildland firefighters are tough because, people don't want to, get on the social media and everything, and you're all working in the woods. So it's tough to kind of get out there. The newest thing we have going on is the partner spouse resources. So I think we're going to have people talking about this as well, but you can get on here and some of the stuff is just so crazy to me. This survey we did for wildland firefighter partners and spouses, and it's pretty wild to read through that. And then we're trying to create a place where partners and spouses share their story. If you come here, you can go through this and you can share your story and put your name on it. And then you can, keep it private, or you can let us share it. And it's a tool to get, really powerful stories out there into the media, and just to let legislators or agency officials understand what exactly we go through, because it's tough for them to understand all that stuff. The last thing I'll say is, we're looking at ways to do membership drives, whether it's like NPO. We're not going to tote bags, but something like that to show membership number. But then also, we're looking to maybe get an executive director and kind of make this a little more sustainable, just because we're all volunteer. A lot of us are working, or even if you're retired, you have another job because the pension is really not that great. And so it's a lot of volunteer hours, a ton of volunteer hours. So if you want, you can donate here and keep the doors open. I know it long term it'd make it more sustainable for us to send people back to DC, pay for lobbying and other things. There's no salaries for any of us, with donations, but it's more about expanding our operations and keeping the boots on the ground's voice heard when these negotiations are going on or with legislation. And I think we've been incredibly effective, and that's my pitch. If you feel like you can, I would try to make a donation here. But that's all I have on the website, and I hope everybody finds it useful and effective in educating yourselves. And if anybody has any suggestions you'd like to see on the website or the store or anything, just let us know and we get feedback. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Smoke Jumper Bro. And speaking of all this media and stuff that we're trying to establish and gain relevancy within the space, we'll take it off next with the comms team. Comms team, you're up.
Hey, Brandon, thanks. I'm testing out a new mic tonight. Can you hear me?
Sounds buttery smooth.
Okay, good. Yeah, I've got a lot to share tonight. I'll try to get through it as quick as I can, but a lot of it's pretty relevant. So bear with me. As we just said, as a lot of you guys know, Grassroots, it's an all volunteer effort. And since we've started, we've been steadily growing our volunteer base. And I want to a special thank you to the 9 wildland firefighters who are members of the comms team and the 5 firefighters who are members of the new social media team. These folks, they're spending their off season And currently, a lot of us are back into our fire season, just logging hours, building the capacity that we need to influence lawmakers in the public. So thank you to those people that are on this call right now. And like I'm excited to announce that we've developed a social media team that's just starting. They're just build off the excellent foundation that we already have in place. So stay tuned to our social media because we hope to really make sure we have a big presence in that space during the 2022 fire season. And after I get through this comms update, I have a bunch of notes from the social media team lead who can't be on the call tonight, has some important info to pass down the line. So with that, requests to help. Folks have been reaching out via our platforms and our website, like I just mentioned, but we're a small group of people and we're doing it in our off hours and the weekends. And it's been incredibly hard to field all the DMs and the emails and the general inquiries that are coming in. So please just patient. If you're reaching out, just be patient. Please know we are reading those and we're trying to sort of dig ourselves out of any backlog and do our best to get back to folks. And moving forward with our social media team, we think we'll see a lot of success with that. So, what about how you can help? We used to get that question a lot. And as we were starting out, we didn't necessarily have the infrastructure in place to answer that question. So Smoke Jumper Bro showed you on the website, the Get Involved page. It's the Get Involved button. On that page, we have 3 major ongoing campaigns. The first campaign is to tell your legislators about TIMS Act. You can simply click onto that. It will search your legislator out for you based on your address, and it will send a message to your representatives asking for them to sponsor and to work towards passing TIMS Act. You can also add in your own unique message as well. You don't have to just use the form that's in there. The next tool that we have on there that folks probably haven't seen yet, if you've been visiting the Get Involved page, is the Letter to the Editor tool. So we get a lot of feedback from legislative offices that we need to be sending as many letters to the editors and doing op-eds as we can. So we created a tool for that. Michelle Hart, along with a comms team member, wrote a message into the letter to editor tool. And if you use that tool, it will send that letter as well as your unique edits to that letter to a number of newspapers' editors. And so it's a great way to blast out to a lot of newspapers all at once, a pretty compelling message. So please check out the Letter to the Editor tool. Finally, on the Get Involved page, we have kind of a unique tool. It's the Bipartisan Wildfire Caucus tool. And if you don't know what that is, there's a caucus in Congress of leaders who say that they specifically care about land fire issues. And to us at Grassroots, we feel like if a legislator cares about those issues enough to be part of a caucus, they should be sponsoring TIMS Act. So what that tool does is it allows you to send a message to the remaining people that are on that committee, the remaining elected officials that are on that, that caucus, I should say, who haven't signed on to TIMS Act. And we've actually seen some success. A lot of you have been using those tools. We're past 1,000 people using those tools, and we just want to see that continue to grow. Finally, the newest portion, and Smoke Jumper Bro shared this, is under the Partners and Spouses section. That's a tool that just went active today, and it's a sort of share your story tool. We call it a testimony tool. It allows us to collect partners and spouses' stories of what it's like to be the partner or the spouse of a wildland firefighter, or to be a dual career partner. So both partners are wildland firefighters, and we're just trying to collect those stories. Using the partner survey last summer, we collected close to 2,000 respondents. But this tool is a little bit different in the sense that it's more warm. You could share your story, and you can choose whether or not you'd like to make that available, sent out to agency representatives, or if you'd just like to use it to vent and to keep it private. So those are the current campaigns and tools that we have up on our website and ways for you to get involved. And I just wanted to plug an upcoming campaign that we have and that a lot of folks will definitely be interested in. And that's going to be a housing insecurity testimony tool. All of us, or many of us, have experienced problems, being able to afford rent or buy home stations that we work. Some of us have experiences living in vehicles. Sometimes, you might be paying for government housing and it might not be sufficient. So that tool is going to be live shortly. We're going to pair it with a pretty good news story that we have coming out. And so stay tuned to share your sort of housing insecurity stories. So those are the 4 tools that are currently up, and we'll have a 5th one coming up soon. Those are great ways to get involved. For tonight, I have a really specific ask for anyone that wants to help right now. You may or may not know, to be able to send out press releases to the media, you need to build a good list of journalists all over the country. We've had a lot of success building that list. We have around 800 journalists on it at the moment, but one of the main priorities for us is to log all the small town newspapers. Those newspapers don't necessarily have clear ways to get a hold of them. So we've collected a list of somewhere around 300 small town newspapers, and we have their contact information, and we're looking for about 3 to 5 volunteers in their spare time to call phone numbers and ask, what email address should Grassroots send our press releases to? And that will really help us get our press releases into these small communities that surround a lot of the national forests that we work in and the national parks that we work in. If you're interested in that, I'll put an email address in the chat box, but just off the top of my head, it's press@grassrootswildlandfirefighters.com. If you want to be one of those volunteers that wants to help right now, we'll get you plugged in, calling these new newspapers, help build our media list. So what to watch for in the news? We have quite a bit coming out in the news. I'm really pleased to share that we're going to be sending out a formal press release this Monday. This press release is part of a series that we're doing on mental health issues. What it's doing is we're sharing the results of the partner survey with the general public. We want the general public to read news stories in their papers, sharing some of the information we collect summer from partners of Wildland Firefighters. And that's going to be going out this Monday. And paired with that release is a video release. The Mental Health Subcommittee produced an incredible video sharing some of the most moving responses that came out of that partner survey. All of it completely anonymous, respecting everybody's privacy, but they put together a really, really amazing video. And if you want to get this press release, if you want to see this video, make sure you're signed up to our e-newsletter. Make sure you're watching our social media. We'll be pushing out the link to our website where you can get your partner involved by having them share their story of what it's like to be a part of a wildland firefighter family. So that's coming out this Monday. Continuing on this month with the mental health theme, we'll be having the housing insecurity press release come out, and that's going to share that story that too many of us know about. I mentioned earlier, living in vehicles, government housing being substandard, all that. We worked with Politico to develop a story, and that story, Politico interviewed 20 wildland firefighters. We put out a bit of cattle call asking for people to have that story to share what it's been like trying to live and work in some of the duty stations that are more expensive and difficult to work in across the country. So look for that story coming out next week. And thank you to those 20 firefighters who responded to us looking for them to pair them with the reporter to tell their stories. Lastly, during the 2021 fire season, we partnered with NPR's Marketplace. That's a pretty popular listened to show all over the country to share sort of the stories of wildland firefighters and the economics of the job. They want to do a follow-up story, understanding how the infrastructure bill is moving along and how that is affecting us. So that's coming out sometime in the next couple months into your radio that. So yeah, there's been a ton of other stories printed just recently, but too many to list during this call. So go visit the website where Smoke Jumper Bro catalogs a lot of those stories, and watch out for social media because we'll be consistently posting any stories that come out. So that's end report for the comms team. Brandon, could I have another couple minutes to share some updates from the social media team?
Absolutely. Yeah. Next, once again, the comms team with the social media team. Oh, that's
Thanks.
folded
Thank
there,
you.
so that's all you.
So
And,
yeah, this
hey, just 1 second. Just a friendly reminder, everybody, please mute your microphones while our speakers are speaking. It's kind of getting some noise in the background. Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon. Yeah, the social media team lead couldn't be on tonight, but he did write out a really good report for me. So I'm going to try to summarize that. And after that, we'll do go backs and we'll get to question and answer. So the communications team spun off a social media subcommittee just this past February. Their goal is content creation and management of the Grassroots social media accounts. Their primary mission is to expand the voice of and the audience of Grassroots. The targets for engagement are all federal wildland firefighters, as well as stakeholders invested in our success and the success of federal land management agencies. So in regard to the social media team, they're preparing to launch a comprehensive engagement campaign coinciding with the start of the Western fire season this April. Over the next few weeks, they'll be building out the digital infrastructure, content, and branding that they hope allow us to run successful information outreach campaigns throughout the spring. All this is going to be on our platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Some things to look forward to will be updates on legislative campaigns. So the implementation of the Infrastructure Act, the progress of TIMS Act, and other public policy affecting the wildland fire community. They're going to be doing some profiles of current and former federal wildland firefighters and their family members and their partners. So for that, they're actively looking for interested participants. They'll work with you to create content that you're comfortable having in the public eye, with the intent of focusing on why individuals choose this career, the days of the career, and what challenges confront you. We'll also be doing some public educational campaigns about federal fire. So the targets of that are non-fire audiences. We're trying to raise our presence in not just amongst wildland firefighters, but in the communities, the fire-prone communities that would be supporters of wildland firefighters. Last part. So beyond beyond interest in the social media campaigns, they also have a need for additional volunteers interested in committing per week to help create and edit content, as well as build out our presence. So while current fire experience is not necessary, a grasp of social media would be helpful. We're looking for 1 to 2 volunteers who have previous graphic design and web design experience. And we'll put in the chat the email address to reach out and let us know if you want to volunteer. So that's end update to the social media. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thank you for the updates, everybody. And next up, I think that's a wrap. If we do have any go backs from the board or the speakers from tonight, please either raise your hand, one of those, which is going to be Smoke Jumper Bro immediately. Take it away.
One thing, just because we're only doing these updates every few months now. One thing that's going to be huge on our website coming up very shortly is a guide on how to speak to the media as a federal employee. So this is something where, there's a lot of like old tales, I guess, that are just not true. You're not allowed to speak to media unless you go through a PIO, or you don't own the pictures you take on all this stuff. We're going to have an actual write up a page on this. And so it'll kind of empower everybody to be able to speak to the media, put their name on stuff if they like, and not fear, reprisal just because, you're still an American citizen using the First Amendment, basically. And there's a lot of laws that protect federal employees from speaking out to the media. And so just watch out for that in the next week or so on the website, and it'll be a really cool document. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Smoke Jumper Bro. Anybody else from the board or the speaking group have anything to add for the tail end of this discussion? All right. I'll take the overwhelming silence as a no. That being said, we're going to end the recording here. Kelly, if you don't mind ending the recording, and we'll go into open